Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's Training with Erg video webinar presentation. My name is Tim Cusick. I'm a master coach with Peaks Coaching Group. We'll be giving you the introduction and a little bit of overview about Erg video training. I'm being joined by Paul Smeulders, the founder, CEO, C3PO, CFO of ErgVideo, and he's going to take us through exciting new things with ErgVideo. ErgVideo 4 has been released, all kinds of cool new stuff going on with them. Probably as most people know, or if you haven't been following, I can tell you, Peaks Coaching Group partners with ErgVideo for our kind of winter indoor-based training formats. We are a partner with them because we respect the product. We are not a paid sponsor. We actually just think it's a great product. We have a long history in working with them, and it's something that we basically promote via our belief in the quality of their product. So tonight what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a little overarching presentation about indoor training and Erg training. Erg mode and Erg training, I know Paul's presentation is really going to explain it a little better than mine, but I want to give you a little bit of an overview and introduction via my own way of presenting it. As we go through the presentation today, you should have a gray little box on the right-hand side of your screen. It actually tends to auto-collapse. So if you'll see this little orange arrow goes left-right, you can open it. Towards the bottom, one of the options you have is questions. You might have a plus sign next to yours. If you click it, it will open. And you can type in a question as you go. As a presenter myself, I like to take questions as I go. So feel free to enter them, as we're moving through. If you type in a question, just hit send. I'll see it on a little panel on my side. And I tend to stop and answer them unless I know I'm going to answer your question later or Paul's going to answer your question later as part of the normal presentation. This gives you a chance to ask a question. We don't get, 20 minutes further down the road, we come back to your question. It's not as relevant. So feel free to type those questions as we go. I just want to give a little bit of background as we jump into today about some key terminology about what is power. And it's funny, no matter how many times I do power presentations and different stuff, you always have to kind of go back to this basic explanation. So work, power, and watts are three terms we're going to be using in this presentation, really more talking about watts. But work is force times distance. Power is work divided by time. And watts, so when we start talking about what is a watt and generating watts, we're talking about torque times cadence. So you're actually talking about, instead of cadence, angular velocity, but you're really talking about, in its simplest term, watts are how hard you pedal multiplied by how fast you're pedaling. To understand training in Erg programs, Erg training modes, stuff like that, it's really important that you get that that's how you generate a watt. Power training has gotten to be such a big thing in the world of training. Most people are adapting to the philosophies of power training. The reality is you can generate watts when you're looking at watts on your power meter by either pedaling harder or pedaling faster. You can do both also. So when we start talking about Erg training, Erg is a file format. It's been around for a long time. Paul probably could give you a better history than me because I know he was part of it. But Erg mode is basically a file format, a training that takes control of the trainer and sets a target power regardless of your cadence or gearing selection. It does this because it adjusts the relationship of how hard you pedal times how fast you pedal on the fly. So basically, an increase or decrease in cadence results in an increase or decrease in the load of resistance, the opposite. So the simplest way to explain is, let's say you're trying to pedal 200 watts and you're doing so at 80 RPM, your cadence is 80. And suddenly you pedal up to 90 cadence, but you normally would be creating some additional watts. As Erg regulates that to 200, as your cadence goes up, it's decreasing the resistance, so it keeps you fixed at 200 watts. So even now you've picked up your cadence 10 RPMs, it's reduced the training load resistance, so you're still pedaling at 200 watts. If you did the reverse, you're starting to fatigue, so you dropped your cadence 10. It would actually increase the training load so that you are still pedaling 200 watts. That's really the core. I know Paul has a much better explanation of it when you see his presentation, but it's really important to understand that, because in understanding why erg training is such a benefit, this is really at the core of it. Indoor trainers have benefits and some negatives to, part of your base training and training through the winter months for those that have to. But erg training has some, bigger, better benefits, in my opinion, that we're going to go over. So what then is erg training? Well, since erg mode controls the watts, you can plan training to highly specific targets. So as a coach who deals with, a lot of indoor training, I have a 7-unit multi-rider in my basement. So I do a lot of my indoor training. I was a fan of ErgVideo before I ever met Paul, and we started doing some things together. I've been using the product for a long time. Wow, it's probably been a really long time. So, to me, what I really liked the most about it, not only was kind of the entertaining and you could do the video and ride, was the ErgVideo system and all erg training. I just think ErgVideo does this the best, is you can design targeted workouts, which then lead to targeted training plans to exact TSS standards. So TSS is a training stress score. It's one of the core elements of power training, and it's a stress score. Well, it's a score that allows us to score the stress of specific workouts. For those physiologists in the room, stress is, and the old classic adage, stress plus strain equals adaptation. Stress is the external factor, how much load, what are you doing to your body? Strain is the internal factor, what your body goes under, what's happening in there under the stress. And hopefully the result of is adaptation, is our body improves to deal with that strain. So it's important that we understand that the stress is the measurement of what we're about to put our body under, with the expectation that it goes under some strain and has an adaptation. Being able to build workouts and then training plans to a highly targeted TSS gives us excellent capability of driving towards desired results. Of course, that comes through controlled workout, principles of training, overload. There's tons of videos we've done and webinars on how to do all that. But the really key here is that you can drive to a target power, a target TSS. One of the things I like is that every athlete that I work with using ErgVideo is you basically know exactly what your power profile is going to look like before you take your first pedal stroke. Unless you make it harder or easier, it's going to create exactly the TSS that we put out, which allows us to really target your chronic training load, or your CTL. Chronic training load is a cumulative score of TSS over time, allowing us through a series of systems, chronic training load, acute training load, training stress balance, to track your fitness, fatigue, and freshness. To be able to deliver an erg training mode, you need smart trainers. There are more smart trainers in the marketplace, but these are the two leaders, and these are the two that will work with your ErgVideo program. I've used both of these to high success. Wahoo Fitness is a little bit of a newer player, not new, but newer on the marketplace. They've got a great product. It is wireless. It works fantastically. Good road feel. Does a very nice job. And is a good gym mix, sturdy, steady device. CompuTrainer's been around for a long time. The CompuTrainers are a little bigger. You have some more wires, but I also believe that they are a rock solid product. I still have my original CompuTrainer, which has got to be, 12 years old now. It still works just fine. And a lot of credibility behind these two products. This combo basically is the best out there. We know our friends at PowerTap have some, and some other smart trainers, and more smart trainers coming to the market. But these are the two that will work with the ErgVideo, and the two I would recommend regardless if you were using with ErgVideo or not. Let's talk about the little bit of the benefits of indoor training. I know a lot of this group has seen this stuff. So a quick question, will ErgVideo work with Cyclops Power Beam? No, it will not. It will only work with Wahoo and CompuTrainer. Now, it will work in the sense you can follow the videos, you can log in your Ant Plus, you can use it as a trainer. It just won't work as a full smart trainer. But I'll let Paul go a little deeper to that in his presentation. Good question. Some of the benefits of the internal training. So, one of the things Paul asked me to do, just as a quick introduction to the program, in talking about ErgVideo, is what are some of the benefits? Well, some are kind of really well known, right? And the internet and all the great training information that's out there has really demystified a lot of this stuff already. So I'm going to touch a couple of highlights here. The biggest benefit really is environmental. There's no external barriers, no interruptions. You don't have stoplights, stop signs, traffic. You don't get caught in the rain. You don't get you get flat tires, but you know what I mean. You have very little interruptions in that sense. You have a very controlled environment. You can control the temperature, the wind, and all the music, the video, the sound, the whatever you're putting around you. Everything can be very controlled. And you can pick the perfect terrain. And I think this is one of the biggest upgrades we've seen and something that ErgVideo makes great for me as a coach. So historically on trainers, right, you go back, for those of us who can go back 5 years even, but 10 years, you really only had one option of terrain. It was called flat and flatter. You got on and you rode. There was a very steady resistance. You could change that resistance up and down and vary it, but the reality was the terrain was flat. With the introduction of smart trainers, we can, and great programs like ErgVideo that can slave those smart trainers, you can mimic both the visual and physiological and the psychological effects of uphill, downhill, maybe not downhill quite as well, but yes, it actually works pretty well. So as a coach, you get this little upgraded extra special benefit is you can really create terrain specificity for workouts that actually feel like terrain. So old static trainers, you get on and be a coaching drill, you pretend like you're climbing, you throw a block or your old phone book, remember phone books, throw your old phone book under your front wheel, and you pretend like you're climbing and away you go, and that's the best. Now with ErgVideo, you can visually see the climb, you could feel the power outputs of the climb and the demands of the climb, and you can actually build that into training, which is great. Improved efficacy. So the reality is, this is one of the terms, people jump right to efficiency, but I take it, not that I won't in my next slide, but I want to start out here. What does it mean? It's the ability to produce a desired intended result. So for me, I actually just wrote an article for this for tomorrow. If you watch on Pez, at pez.com, talking about some winter indoor trainer tips, since this has been on my mind. One of the things that we don't use our base training enough for is the things that everyone says we should. So really, we want to create these desired results in training. It starts here in this base or winter training. So to me, one of the things that the trainer really brings that is getting lost in power training is improved muscular endurance. So on the trainer, we know this benefit, right? You don't coast, but I mean, you could certainly choose to, but you don't have to coast. There's no hill too steep, no downhill too steep where you're not being able to stay on the power. You actually end up pedaling constantly. And I would highly recommend that. I can't tell you for athletes who train outdoors all winter, how much I harass my athletes to keep spinning, find routes where you're not doing a lot of coasting, because we're not building muscular endurance as well as if we could keep spinning the bike. So the reality is it gives us this opportunity to improve muscular endurance. Two, it improves our aerobic development because there's no aerobic recovery. So this reality is, I know we go out and we do aerobic rides in the winter and everybody says stay in zone 2, stay in zone 2, stay in zone 2. The reality is, for your body to start getting maximum aerobic response, the highest and best benefit from aerobic exercise, you need about, 40 to 60 minutes of aerobic riding before you get, full capillary and mitochondrial expansion and everything's flowing right. And it's that ability to stay on it and continue to ride that really drives the result. When we ride outdoors a lot in the winter part of our base, the overall average is in zone 2. But if you break that down and you look at riders who maybe don't have the focus, you see a lot of time where there's these longer 1 to 2 minute breaks of coasting and light pedaling and other stuff. That really gives some time for what I call aerobic recovery. And then you're not getting everything expanded. You're not getting that maximal advantage. Trainer, erg mode, if you're setting your workouts up correctly, you're basically on it in a steady fashion for 60, 90 minutes, up to 2 hours. I don't really recommend, even though I've done it, I just don't recommend going over 2 hours on a trainer. But that being said, if you can do it, there's a pretty significant advantage. The reality is it'll burn you up if you're not really careful. And Ken, I see your question. I'm going to answer it in one slide. So it does give us efficiency. It's what I call ease of purpose. I mean, indoor training, my wife and I discuss this all the time at her house, and it's funny, is like we have mixed weather and you could go out, but having a multi-rider station in your basement is a curse and a blessing. It's a blessing in the sense that it's really easy just to pull on a pair of shorts and a jersey and roll downstairs and jump on a bike and knock out a highly compact, 60 to 120 minute workout. But that makes it harder to put, 2 or 3 layers of clothes on, booties, warmers, heavy gloves, and ride your bike out of the garage in 33 degrees. So sometimes it actually is a deficit of that. But the reality is it gives an ease of purpose. You're very time compact. You get on, you do your work, you're done. There is a reduction. I received, there's 2 or 3 questions just popping up based on my last slide about equating time. How does time compare? So I'm going to answer that question in 2 ways. You probably see it right here. It's time compact. I usually say it's about 25% reduction in time. Now, if you know about TSS and training stress score and stuff like that, the reality is the training stress score doesn't show that reduction. If you go out and ride your bike outside for 2 hours and ride on the trainer for 2 hours, you can typically get a higher TSS outside than you do inside. Riding ErgVideo can help that a little bit because it's a more real road-like effect, but the reality is the TSS is higher. So here's kind of my coaching tip here. I'll mention it again later. I don't always then prescribe the drop of 25%. So I reverse the equation because I'm more opportunistic. It gives me the ability to do 25% more training load by using the indoor trainer. So if I was going to go outside and ride 90 minutes, I don't go inside and ride 25% less. I would still ride 90 minutes. It just helps me equate mentally, but I use TSS. And for everybody on this list, it's a pretty big, there's a lot of people on here. If you're not familiar with what training stress score is, I would Google search training stress score. Just Google search Training Peaks training stress score. It'll lead you to a bunch of articles on Training Peaks on it and give you some excellent insight. And then, some ways to normalize what I'm talking about. 2, the training efficiency, it allows me to target on specifics. There is no greater way to target an athlete's or if you're self-coached, your own limiters, weaknesses, and needs than on the trainer. Don't get me wrong, I shouldn't say that. If your sprint technique isn't good, you're not going to get that on the trainer. But when it comes to the physiological limiters, you can attack almost all of them with a high degree of efficiency on the trainer. If you're not building winter plans to target specific limiters or weaknesses, then you're just not maximizing your winter training. When Paul and I started doing training plans together, and Hunter and Scott. So there's 2 Peaks Coaching Group plans. There's a Hunter Allen training plan and there's a Scott Moniger training plan. When Hunter and myself built the Hunter Allen plan, it really was about threshold and improving FTP. And that's good. FTP is one of the greatest drivers of race and performance success. And if it was the one thing, if you had to choose just one thing to work on, FTP is definitely the greatest bang for the buck. But then we realized that we didn't have some specific, we said, what are limiters? And the number one request that we get all the time is, I want to climb better, I want to climb better, I want to climb better. So the reality is we built the Scott Moniger series. Scott, myself did them, we're in the videos, to not only improve your threshold and your specific climbing skills. And when I say skills, the reality is people ask all the time, what's the secret to climbing better? Pedal harder. It really is. I mean, yeah, there's a couple of tips I could give you here, but at the end of the day, you've got to be able to climb harder. So it's funny, and I actually see him on this, Dr. Stephen Chung from Pez and I were having a conversation a little bit about this morning. One of the things that really great performance climbers do, so when you're climbing in a race or in an event or a Gran Fondo, which this is very targeted towards race and Gran Fondo, particularly Gran Fondo, you rarely ever get the opportunity, and to be honest with you, rarely ever it is the absolute fastest to go at exactly one targeted watt. I'm going to target 250 watts. I'm just going to hold that for 20, 40, 60 minutes, whatever your goal is. You've got to be able to go a little bit over, a little bit under. So if you watch like Tour de France climbers and riders of the big tours and pros at that level, they don't climb steady. The way they win races is, counterattack, counter, finally put in an attack that no one else can counter, and they ride away. So part of the climbing skill, and you'll see that in that set, is the fact that we're working on some anaerobic, what we call functional reserve capacity, this ability to go anaerobic and then come back to just below threshold and recover without having to go really far down. You'll see some unique intervals that will help your body prepare for that. So we built those series and those training plans really focused on limiters, weaknesses, and needs. The top two that we targeted, Hunter Allen's plan targets pure threshold. Scott's plans target your climbing capabilities. And probably down the road, we'll tackle some other limiters as we go. Finally, the training efficiency improvement is these things are highly quantified. We can put numbers to it. We could track improvement performance. If I can do my 20 minutes at 150 beats right now is 250 watts. And then 3 weeks from now, it's 260 watts at 150 beats. I've improved. It's highly quantified training where you can see the results. And Chris, I see your question. I'm going to answer it in a second. Final benefit, execute training versus exercise. I preach this a lot in training, and everyone says it in different ways. You got to have a plan, right? A lot of people think they have a plan because they have a bunch of workouts. So think about the difference between exercise versus training. Exercise is a daily thing you do that your goal is to improve your fitness. One of the great examples I use here, and that's not bad. An example of exercise is CrossFit. So CrossFit is if performed safely and accurately, is a great way to tune a lot of your body, and maybe not for cyclists, but to tune a lot of your body. But the workout of the day, right? Think about that workout of the day. That's exercise. You're putting together a series of workouts in the day you can complete those workouts of the day at a certain speed and effectiveness, and then you're plateaued. Where do you go from there? You're not periodizing, you're improving, but you're not targeting, you're not going somewhere. So a lot of people, unfortunately, even though they hear all the time, you got to have a plan, you got to have a plan, they don't have a plan. They basically are riding the trainer for general fitness, which nothing wrong with that. But ErgVideo and these Erg programs, smart trainers, really allow you to deliver a highly quantified plan. And that's just exercising with a purpose. You're time and target driven, your execution of a plan to drive specific results. So it's really important to me that, and one of the great parts of using a trainer and smart trainer and stuff like that is you can execute a plan, and there's plans, and Paul's going to give you insight into the plans that are in ErgVideo. Final slide, I just wanted to give somebody some general tips as we turn it over to Paul to kind of go through the details in the ErgVideo side. A couple of my tips. One, trainer threshold / FTP effect. One of the realities is most people cannot generate the same amount of power on a trainer as they can on the road. And I get the question all the time, how much percent, what percent should I reduce? What should it be? My answer is very simple. Test it on the trainer. Find out. If you want to find out in the late fall, it's very easy. Set up your trainer. Go out one day and ride as hard as you can for 20 minutes on a good flat roads, low grade climb. Do a maximal 20-minute test. Recover for a day or two. Put your bike in the trainer. Warm up well and go as hard as you can in the trainer for 20 minutes. And whatever that difference is, you could break down to a percentage, and that's probably your difference. But it is going to be different. If you're training both indoors and out in a highly quantified fashion through the base training, you're going to want to maintain an FTP of what your FTP is on indoor training and what FTP is in outdoor training. It's very different for all people. My wife and I, who ride the multi-rider together all the time, hers is very close. She might be within 5 to 10 watts of our external one, and when really on form, probably close to zero, where mine tends to be 20 to 25 watts. I can be a good chunk off. I just cannot produce power on a trainer like I can on a road bike. I need to move the bike. Keep focusing on that aerobic building. One of the things here is don't get caught in what I call the watts per kilogram trap during the early midwinter. Focus on increasing duration in zones, not piling on watts. This is a constant tip for me. It's one of the things I just want people, I see so many people go into their winter training, they jump on a trainer, they're going to do 2 times 20. And then they're always trying to get the maximum amount of watts. They should be riding in sub-threshold or something, but they're not. They are going harder, and every 2 times 20 becomes the desire to add 5 more watts. That really is a limiter. You're much better off taking, 2 times 20 to 2 times 22. And then that becomes 3 times 15. And that becomes 3 times 17. And that becomes 3 times 20. At the pro level, I'll have some of my pro athletes riding 4 times 20, if not more, in the winter base periods. So as a recreational cyclist, I don't really recommend going far over an hour of SST or sub-threshold or tempo in that fashion. All does pretty well. But keep building your duration in that zone and don't get overly focused on the power number. The power numbers will come up as you get more fit. Build in some cadence efforts. Always be thinking cadence. It's so funny. I wrote these tips a year ago, and I just wrote an article. The article I was talking about that will come out in PEZ tomorrow, where I was preaching both of these. In the PEZ article, I actually put a bunch of cadence training techniques that you can do as part of ErgVideo. And one of the things that's really cool that Paul has done a great job of working with Hunter and Scott and myself is we built a lot of those cadence things actually right into the workouts where there's instructionals on the screen and you can execute cadence drills right as part of the workout. So make sure you're looking for that. Finally, with ErgVideo, it's entertainment that works. It's so funny. I tell this simple story about it, and then I watch people do it all the time. I have a multi-rider in my basement. I train with different friends, and different people come over to try it. I watch people actually break. Always cracks me up. Sometimes we do some races and stuff like that, and not that we do much of that in the winter, but I do believe in throwing something hard in once or twice a month. You do a crit video or something like that, and you eventually see somebody looking to grab some break or do something, like that. It's pretty funny. When you actually get that engaged and that entertainment works, it sucks you in and pulls you into it. See a bunch of people posting additional tips. That's cool. Yeah, I did a video, a webinar about 2 weeks ago with Paul on tips of indoor training, where we really talked about setting up your environment with fans and things like that. We can make that link available to you guys if you haven't seen it. One final question I want to answer, then we'll turn it over to Paul. Somebody asked, why do you think I can get a higher average watts indoors than outdoors? I do not. As a matter of fact, most people have a lower average watts indoors than they do outdoors. Maybe I said that backwards.
I have a, no, you said it correct, Tim, but I am one of those people that gets it better indoors than outdoors as well.
Correct.
I have a theory if you want me to share it, but you go ahead.
No, share away. I mean, love to hear.
Oh, okay. I find, and there's no way that someone, well, no one has ever told me that I lack focus. In fact, they usually berate me because I have what appears to be too much focus with things. But when I'm outside and I'm trying to do a threshold test, as much as I concentrate on the power meter, as much as I concentrate on what I'm doing and how hard I want to go, there'll be moments where I say, oh, damn, I wasn't thinking. And I look down and there I've just dropped 40 watts. And it's like, oh, how long could that have happened? So my focus is different outside. I mean, you have to be focused on the traffic. You have to be focused on things that might be affecting your safety and all that stuff. Or making decisions about, okay, am I going to catch that guy in the time trial now or before the turn, or how long will it take me? So I'm always, something's going through my head that isn't necessarily telling me, you know, stay on the watts, stay on the watts. But indoors, especially doing the threshold test on ErgVideo, and I have to say on a Velotron, the power and the cadence and the gear, and it's a steady, if you have the threshold test, it's a steady 2% load, a grade load. I know that's not going to change, and I always go into it with a power plan for my threshold test, and I try really hard to stick to it. And just because I can focus on the number, I can focus on my friend Ronnie and how he pedals, and I can just stay right on the power and not lose that concentration, because outside when I lose the concentration, boom, 40 watts for just drop 40 watts for 30 seconds and see how hard it is to get those watts back into your threshold test.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I fail, and that could very well be what this participant might be asking me. You know, I'm going to just say, for me, it's mental.
Yeah, you know, and that's exactly my point, right? And I think you give a good counter side to it. Go find out. One of the funniest things about all this training with data that people somewhat take some time to learn is you can find out very easily. Just test it. And once you get a number, each individual, in all my years of coaching, I've learned that there's an amazing individuality. And whatever physiological things you learn, there's no absolutes, right? But the individual themselves tends to be patternistic. Like no matter what kind of shape I'm in, I know I'm always 20 to 25 watts less on the trainer. It's just I have a big number. I just struggle to generate power on a trainer. Once you find your pattern, you're going to tend to find it to stick pretty normally. So I'm going to switch it over to you, Paul. Here comes you turning it to you as the presenter. You should get the option now to show your screen, and I'll let you know when we see your screen, and you can just unmute, and now we can see your screen.
Okay, great. Great. Okay, thanks, Tim. I think what's going to happen, folks, Tim's, oh, I have a very creaky chair. Can you hear me creaking the chair? I need to change. Hold on. Entertain them for 2 seconds, Tim.
I will answer. There's 2 more questions in the mix, right? So I got the question, one of my biggest issues with clients is I cannot prescribe workouts in ErgVideo. Chris, there is an ErgVideo coach tool that you can just build an entire plan in and give to them all at once. Make sure, Paul's going to give you a little overview. We can teach you how to use it, the ErgVideo coach program. Next question is, do you use your average power or normalized power for your FTP outdoors? Well, it depends on your testing format. You should either use your 60-minute normalized power, 95% of your 20-minute power. Those are the kind of shortcut ways to test it. But at the end of the day, the absolute best way is ride as hard as you can for an hour. But then your average power, when you're actually on the trainer, you're setting it by average power. So Paul, you have your screens reversed?
I do, and I'm going to try to figure out how do you do that in PowerPoint? Oh.
I got to remember, let me see if I can see it here on a...
Trying to do the, so you are actually, man. there are these little icons all over the place. Yeah, that's not it. Okay, let me just do that.
I think if you go into View up
View,
above,
yeah,
yeah, and switch windows over to the right,
or to the right.
right
Switch
there.
window, yeah.
You only have one screen going?
I have two screens going, but I wish I could get out of, I'm very embarrassed, folks. I'm going to say end show. Good. Now, switch windows.
Huh, yeah, it should give you the second one, but it's not.
Okay, there should be a way for me to switch.
Yeah, display settings up top. Maybe it's up there. There you go.
Swap center view. Yay!
All right,
All
now
right.
go back to slide one. You're good. I'm going to mute and let you go.
Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry about that, folks. I am not a rookie at PowerPoint. The way that it works usually with Tim and Kathy is they're veterans at following questions while they're talking, and I'm going to rely on, if there's a burning question, I'm going to rely on either Kathy or Tim to sort of butt in and say, there's a question that you should answer now, and I'll do it. Otherwise, I just push ahead and hope you enjoy the show. Tim has provided a really good introduction to some of the things that I treat in my talk. This is kind of a talk that I give when I'm doing a demo. Usually at the end of it, I have two people riding in front of a group of people and a big screen, and they ask questions then. What we'll do at the end of my slideshow, I will drive ErgVideo itself and just show you a few of the cool new setup features that we have in the version 4 software. And some of the things you can do with it that I'm sure you have not yet discovered. Most people have not yet discovered some of the richness of ErgVideo and some of the features, so we'll try to go through them. But I want to talk to you about why is ergometer style training so good. I like to contrast it to what people, typically you buy a smart trainer and you are so turned on by the fact that you're given maybe a piece of software that says, look, you can ride any course that you want. And we have all of, for example, we have all of the triathlon courses in the world loaded in, and they're all for free, and you can ride these terrains. And even in the video realm, they'll sell you the video based on, look, if you are familiar with the course, you will know exactly what to do on race day, and you'll get really, really good at it. Now, if it's video, and it's video of the real place, that's a step ahead. But most of them are rendered simulations. So I'll cast your mind back to, say, the RacerMate 3D product, where it really is just a road undulating according to the actual grade. That's good. But the scenery you see, you don't see intersections, you don't see landmarks, you don't see the actual place that you are. So when you go to that place, it's not going to reflect, or I should put it the other way. When you do this simulation over and over with this generated rendered graphics, that does not look like where you're going on race day. So you will ride on race day thinking, what is this? This is all different. Of course it's different. Some people will say, well, if I know the terrain, I can come up with a pacing strategy, and I can follow that, and I can be really good at that. And the problem with it is the wind direction on the day you do your race is going to be different. It's going to be stronger. It's going to come from a different direction, and that will, I like to say, blow your plan away, literally. It'll be hard when you're on the outbound leg, and you may have done all of your pacing strategy as if there was no wind at all from any direction. So my other point to make is, if it's so darned important that you must be completely familiar with the course, then all of the winners would be locals. The winner would be the guy that rides the course all the time. And that's not the case. The winners are the people who train right and they're faster and fitter. And that's the bottom line. And they're the people that figure out how to train to put themselves in the optimum condition to deal with whatever conditions they're going to encounter. Now, Tim talked about the controlled training plan, and I have to say I'm fixated on this performance manager chart. This is a chart just showing the chronic training load. That's the blue line here. I think you can see my cursor as I point. The red line is the acute training load progression of a training plan that we've concocted. This is actually my training plan from a long time ago, and the training stress balance through my winter training. Now, the neat thing about being able to quantify so much of the cycling activity, you have your cadence meters, you have your speedometer, you have your, above all, the power meter, is that coaches, there's enough experience with all of this now that coaches can put together a progression of workouts that will bring you through probably your maximum ramp rate, or the fastest you can possibly healthily and effectively handle in your CTL and your ATL. And they can modulate these things to sort of bring up, cause your TSB to come up and cause a peak at your targeted point in your season. It only works if the coach understands, first of all, how fast can he ramp you, what have you done in the past, what numbers sort of work, but he also has to be able to rely on the fact that you're going to do the workouts, not overdo the workouts, and not underdo the workouts. And a lot of people will overdo the workouts, and so this is a progression that, I would say, if I looked at it, I say, boy, that's a really nice target. Something's going on here, and this is actually kind of not a resting part of my season, but it's kind of where I'm trying to just work more on the ATL here and there. So what people tend to do when they go sort of off the project is they try to go too hard. So this isn't necessarily a plan. This is the actual output of a series of rides, and you can see that the CTL, if I flip between them, you can see that blue line is kind of changing slope, and it's going up a little bit harder, and these peaks are going higher. So this person is executing a plan that they might find that they get to a certain point, and now they're really burned out, and they're not recovering, and they need to take a little bit of time off. So you could call it overtraining, you could call it overreaching. It's got lots of terms. I'm sure Tim would have the best word for it. But what it means is you got to back off and start over again later after you've done some recovery. And what happens with many kinds of indoor training, or for training period, is you'll get people overdoing it, and they'll think that that's really good for them until they fall apart. So when it's properly managed, we can get that chronic training load, or your coach can get the chronic training load to keep increasing, at least towards whatever you can handle with your time, or whatever is your genetic limit, or your age limit, and things like that. Now, how do you do it? Well, instead of just, very few coaches just tell you to go out, well, go and do 120 kilometers and put that in your log and tell me that you've done 120 kilometers, and now go out and do 130 and do 140 the next day. No, we've got it down to a prescription, and I'm sure you've seen something like this, little yellow sticky note here. The coach says, do a warm-up for 20 minutes, and I want you to do 5 reps at 4 minutes long at 115% of FTP, or some intensity level. They don't all have to be, FTP based. I'm using our examples. But basically, a time versus an intensity, and a certain amount of rest, because we know that you only need a certain amount of rest to come down and be able to do this again, or at least for 5 reps. And then follow that with, in this case, 4 reps at 2 minutes on and 2 minutes off at 118%. So the coach, and you know, even think back to before we even had power meters. You just had a stationary trainer, and your coach would stand there and say, okay, now go hard. Maybe you used your heart rate. Not as good, but it was all specified, do this effort for this amount of time, not distance, and then rest for this amount of time, not distance, etc. So below here, I just have a graph of, you know, here's just a standardized warm-up. Whoop, I clicked the wrong button. There we go. Standardized warm-up, and 5 minutes on, 3 minutes off. You know, this is 115% FTP. This is a rest, 115. So there's 5 reps followed by 4 reps, just as in this prescription. So with Erg trainers, of course, we can create that profile, feed it to the Erg trainer, and you can execute the workout. However, some people insist not doing that. They do. My example here is if you're trying to execute the power versus time on a course, and in this case, I'm outside, and you're going along and coach has told you, you know, 250 watts, and you happen to be on a hill, and you go 14 kilometers an hour at 250 watts. You notice that's actually pretty good, you know, but you crest the hill, you've still got a minute to go, and you're still supposed to put out 250 watts, and you find yourself spinning up to, you know, 50 miles an hour, and you can't sustain 250 watts. You're spun out. So you do this outside on a course, it's very, very hard to target those watts. As well, it's hard to manage your clock, right? You're always looking at your watch saying, am I done 2 minutes, or was that 3? Or how many reps have I done? Things like that. So it's hard to actually track these things. Next slide says, okay, well, let's go indoors and let's do it on a course in my 3D world. It's a step up. I'm telling you, it's a good step up, but it still fails on a course that's undulating like this. And what you end up doing is watching. So you got this nice 3D vision, and you don't really have timers for your watts. You can look at your timer up here to say, okay, I'm going to start my interval at 1 minute, and I'm going to go. What did I say? It's a 4 minute. What is it? It's a 4 minute interval. And so I'll go to, let me think, that's 5 minutes, and then I'll take 3 minutes off. Well, at 8 minutes, and then 8 and 3 is 13, and you're sort of tracking the timer all the time. And because your watts, your power is not regulated, you are always watching this number, and you're trying to stay on target. You go a little over, oh, you slow down. You go a little under, oh, you speed up. Uh-oh, you crest a hill. Hey, I can't hold 250 watts down the hill because there's no resistance at all on my trainer, and I'm just going to spin out completely, just very much like on the road. The other problem that I have with it is you have all of this cool stuff to look at, but this on the right is what you end up seeing. Your whole ride, you really focus on nothing other than the clock and this little box trying to make your target watts during every time segment. So no matter what you do, different workouts, different kinds of training, every session feels like you've only looked at this. And that's bad for your your long-term love of the activity. Now, there's lots of people who say, I don't need a smart trainer, I can get a dumb trainer because I have a power meter on my bike. Yes, that it will work, and I just want to sort of point out to you why an Erg trainer is that much better. Here I'm just showing a person going through the interval, targeting 250 watts, the blue line, and this would be the line that his power meter is giving as he rides. And when you're overdoing the power, you see that you're overdoing it and you say, okay, I should back off, backs off a bit, oh, then he doesn't concentrate quite enough, then you got to bring it back up. And once again, every ride you do, you're going to be fixated on matching the yellow line to the blue line, and it's going to drive you nuts. Now, Tim talked a little bit about this. This is a slightly different illustration, and we'll try to follow it. Power is speed times torque. Okay, he said cadence. Well, you know, it's a single gear. We can say that angular velocity is the same as cadence because we're turning a drum. So 250. The numbers here kind of work out. I've got 250 watts, and my torque, well, let's just say my speed is at 20 kilometers per hour. And that means my torque is going to be 12 and a half somethings, okay? There is a constant of proportionality in there that we're not going to get into. Just say 12 and a half times 20 is 250. And as long as I keep my speed steady, the trainer will keep the torque at that level so that I'm always at 250 watts. Now, if I slow down, and I've just shown slowing down for 1 second, going down to 15 kilometers per hour. Okay, so I went from 20 down to 15 over the span of a second. A smart trainer will detect that you slowed down and will immediately, this is on a expanded time scale, will immediately adjust the torque. So in the very next second, it's actually faster than that. The smart trainer will increase the torque so that the product of torque times speed is going to be restored to the 250 watt target. And if I stay at that speed, here I'm showing the person went from 20 to 15, and his torque changed from 12 and a half to whatever that number is, 15, 16, almost 17, whatever our torque units are in this scale. Okay, but the point is, I was restored to 250 watts. Now, this I've shown over 2 seconds. It actually happens on a CompuTrainer every 30 milliseconds, and will happen on a kicker very close to that as well. So the point is, no matter what you do on a smart trainer, if you have a target of 250, as long as you're pedaling, you're going to be putting out 250 watts. If you can't put out the watts, if you're physically incapable to keep the speed up to a point, if the speed drops very, very low, the torque goes way high and it crushes you and brings you to a really embarrassing stop. So I like to say that ErgVideo is always a power versus time ergometer experience. The intensity is regulated as some percentage of your FTP. I've shown here just a pretty picture, but this is an original ErgVideo workout, and you can see that it's a series of intervals. You can see that they're a little choppy here and there because my actors may not have held, you know, a constant pedal stroke that whole time, and their power actually visibly drops or raises when they all stand up or things like that. So there's a bit of realism going on here that's encoded in the intervals, especially down here during the rests where they're kind of, you know, relaxing. Okay. Your partner. So ErgVideo was developed so that you can ride easily with a partner or a large group of people. And my goal was that everyone gets the same workout. Everyone starts at the same time. Remember, it's power versus time. So if it's a 1 hour workout, everyone's done in an hour. It's not like the guy who's fastest is done sooner, like in a distance workout. So your partner is regulated to the same percentage of their own FTP. So when the target here looks like about 110%, everybody in the room is at 110% of their own FTP. So if I'm riding myself, if my FTP is 230, I'm at do the math, 253. And if Buddy beside me is a 300 watt FTP at 110, that's 330 watts. And I hope I did the math right, because Tim is recording this and my mistake will live on forever on the internet. So my whole point is everyone gets the same workout relative to their individual fitness. When I am told by my coach, when you are told by your coach to do a VO2 max workout at 120% of your FTP in these intervals, and he tells me to do the same workout, even though I do it at a different absolute watts, I'm getting the same physical benefit relative to my current fitness. And the whole point here, the same duration, the same intervals, the same relative intensity means everyone gets the same training benefit from the session. And that is a key goal. This basically says, now, why is it fun? I've gone through and told you that the trainer, the smart trainer, is going to take care of the power. All you have to do really is pedal. And as long as you're pedaling, the power will take care of itself. You have to pedal hard enough, and you should pedal easily when there's no load. So really, during an ErgVideo session, there's no need to look at any of this down here. You really can look at the session and feel what the riders, or sense what the riders are doing. When Buddy here, number 4, gets up out of his seat and hammers, the power, his power went up. I'm following Buddy, and my power is going to go up. So I really just look up here, and I say, what's coming? Is it going to be hard or is it going to be easy? And I say, wow, that's going from 0 to something like 115. I'm going to have to stand up and get on this. And then I just wait for it to drop, and I get a nice little rest in between. And then I have to hammer again and go. So really, you can see this in the corner of your eye, and you can watch the action and just mimic and feel the flow of the race or feel the flow of the workout, things like that. It's not like I find a lot of people will look down here and say, what, the load is 170, my power it's 167, go harder. And then, oh, but now it's 175, oh, go less, it's 165, go hard. Don't do that. If you ignore the power and don't even look at it and don't even try to match those two numbers, you will come out with a better match to the workout in the end than even if you tried, because basically the trainer is better at it than you are. And to me, that's a key point, and that's kind of why ErgVideo works for me. I think maybe I've mentioned, when I ride outside, I see a squirrel, and rather than saying, oh, I saw a squirrel and I was 40 watts off, I go home and say, I saw a squirrel, right? That pleases me. Or I saw a deer or something like that. I don't want to look at numbers. I want to experience the race. I want to experience the workout. Here's a graph, and just getting back to the trainer is better at it than you. This is real data from a ride where this is the blue line is the erg load, and the green line is overlaid. That's the actual power that the rider did. This, I think, was taken on my Velotron, and the match is incredible on how that trainer keeps you dead on target. If that isn't clear enough, there's another graph. These are over/under intervals. This is the actual ErgVideo load graph, and this is the actual data that someone wrote it, and really high correlation between the two, between the target and the actual. So I like to say with ErgVideo, you finish, and it's best, you finish every session fulfilling your time versus power prescription. You're not over, you're not under, unless you've had to turn down the power, right? If the target was too high, you could turn down the power during the ride. You might come out a little under. If you think it was too easy, you could have turned it up, if you're feeling fresh. But generally speaking, you can be dead on target. And this way, just following your program keeps you on that optimal progression, assuming your coach has figured out what your optimal progression rate is. Okay, and it means you're going to be ready. You're going to be properly ready to do it the next day or after a day of rest, whatever's in your program. You finished every session at the same time as your partner. You didn't finish 15 minutes ahead and stood around, lollygagging and while she was still doing her intervals. You get on and get off at the same time. You get the same benefit from each workout as your riding mate, and with the video, you often feel like you've done something different each time rather than just looking at numbers. I'll go back to that point all the time. You may feel like you've been somewhere. I have a friend who always posts to her mother that says, "Oh, well, today I was in France, and next week we're going to Italy." Blah blah blah. It's a joke between them. But you actually do feel like you've done something different each time. It just becomes a different mental experience each time you ride. And finally, you finish every session happy. Tim said, so usually this is where I go off to I put two riders out in front of people and I make them ride. And one cool thing that I like to do, I'll go back to here, I make them ride something like this. And the numbers are showing, the power number and the load number are showing. And then I tell people that they're not trying to match those numbers, even though at that moment it's matching really closely. And of course, because people don't really believe you, I put paper bags on their heads. I do that because I think it's kind of funny, and because it proves that in the next, and I make them ride for the next minute or so, and I show the people, look at the numbers matching. They don't have to look at the numbers, and it just matches. And then I take the bags off the head to the delight of my people. What I'll do here is sort of show you, if it's agreeable to the audience, just show you some of the things in the new setup screen in ErgVideo 4. Tim wanted me to show you how you can put together all the different devices and how easy it is. I am ultimately going to fail with PowerPoint slides, but let's just take a look at the first setup screen. What you are looking at here is I've set up a studio configuration that has 3 stations. A station is a place you're going to put a bike. In my room, I have 3 trainers. The screen is here, so they're all pointing in this direction. In this window, you will see pop up all of the personal Ant Plus devices that are in the room or within range. So things that people carry on their bikes or on their bodies. So I have a cadence sensor showing up, I have a power sensor on a bike, and I have a heart rate sensor on somebody. Here you have the things that are fixtures in your studio, the things that don't move with a person. So I have 2 kickers and a Velotron. So in a studio environment, you would set up how does the overhead view of how your bikes look, and all these things are going to be constant, and they'll always be assigned to stations. When people come and go, you'll see these changing quite a bit. So, oh, there we go. Personal devices, trainers, and, oh yes, what the new interface does is very easily allow, previous solutions to CompuTrainer connectivity always referred to COM ports and what COM port is on what bike and all that stuff. This drag and drop interface makes it very simple. I'm showing the Velotron is on COM 4, and if my Velotron happens to be in position 1, I just dragged and dropped it there. That's why it's green. It's already in this spot. I would drag and drop the kicker to this kicker. I would ask the person, spin the wheel, which one is it? I would see which one has speed and drag it to that position. I'm going to do this. I know that this fails on PowerPoint. Here I'm just showing, you know, when I have someone sitting in the Velotron and I say, is that your heart rate sensor? Yes, it is. And I drag and drop it to the station and it gets assigned to Paul. So this, I think, is where I gave up. And I just need to do a live demo. At this point, are there burning questions that I should answer, or should I dive right into the demo, Tim or Kathy?
I would jump into quick demo. I've been answering questions. I do think
I've been seeing that you're not attentive on the whole list there.
that's actually because I was running the question bar.
I know. Just kidding.
But no, I do have a question. I want to see some of your live video.
All right.
Quick.
Yeah. If I don't hit it, then just jump in when you think the time is right. So I just launched my ErgVideo. It did a scan of the serial ports and the room. I'm going to go to my setup screen. I think let's make it bigger. Okay. So in this room, so starting off, I just have a single station showing. If you have a studio or you have a number of stations, you just add stations. And the default comes up as a manual trainer because that doesn't require anything to be connected. I've detected my Velotron and I've detected 2 kickers. So I'll just go and spin the wheel of the Velotron. Loads on. Okay. And like, suppose you had 4 Velotrons. You would spin the wheel and you'd say, the one I just spun is the one that's on COM4, and it happens to be the one that's in position 1. So all you do is you drag and drop it, and I have a Velotron at that position. You can look at the details of what's going on here. The Velotron has a calibration number. You can set the chainring, and everything is coming from the COM port in this case because the Velotron is fully connected. It has an RPM, it has a heart rate monitor, and of course it has speed and power. I have 2 kickers in the room, and I might not know, and of course these aren't connected at all, they're wireless. So which one is which? So I'm just going to spin one. And that's my one that's at position number 2. So I'm just going to drag and drop it into position 2. And of course the one that's left over, I'll spin it just to show you. And it is turning on a cadence sensor as well, is my unit in position 3. So now I've configured the hardware connections in my room. Personal devices go with people. So if I tried to put the cadence sensor here on this kicker, it's going to say you can't drop this because there's no rider. The point is, if I dropped a cadence sensor onto a kicker, it's going to walk out of the room as soon as the person takes their bike. Okay. Now, so let's suppose, well, I'm Paul Smeulders and I ride always the Velotron, but I'll be nice. I will put Marianne on the Velotron. I'm going to ride the middle kicker, and I'll put Wrong Way Feldman on the 3rd kicker. I hope there's someone in the audience who senses a theme and works like this. Now, there's a signal strength indicator here to tell me that my kickers are fully communicating and in range, should have no issues with wireless communication. I'm wearing a heart rate sensor. This is mine. If I had a number of people wearing heart rate sensors that hadn't been detected before, I'd ask one of them to jump up and down, and the guy whose heart rate goes up, that's the sensor, and that's me. So now I've assigned the heart rate sensor to me. And furthermore, the bike that I have sitting behind me in position number 2 is the one with the stage's power meter. So it says that Paul has come in with a heart rate monitor and his own power meter and he has expressed that he wants to see the watts from the power meter rather than the watts from the kicker on the display. And let's just say that Wrong Way Feldman came in and sat on a kicker, and he's brought his own cadence sensor with him. Okay. Now we have assigned those personal devices to the people. So when I remove Paul Smeulders and bring in Roy Hinckley, the professor, he's only using the kicker, getting the speed and watts from the kicker. It's not like he's just taken over the heart rate monitor and the power meter that I had originally put there, because those are Paul's, and he took his bike out of the room, or he took his bike off the kicker, let's say. So where is this handy? This is really handy to figure out who's here. I like this box. It's very handy. If I cancel scanning, because it's always scanning, and I do a restart scan, it's just going to see it's just doing a refresh of all of the devices. It's actually told me I've detected that Paul is in the room, as is Wrong Way Feldman. Well, why is that? Well, because Paul belongs to the heart rate sensor, and Wrong Way Feldman belongs to the cadence sensor. So if you had a studio and you just, one day came in, like you had a studio, you had people milling about, and you had a riders list of 130 people, bless you, but you would go to this and say, I don't need to go through this long list, which could be very extensive. I know that Paul is here, and I could just put him on his favorite ride. Okay? Now, why does it say watts and RPM are not showing properly here? It's got a little exclamation point. Well, it's because Paul's power meter hasn't activated. So we timed out on the stages, it activates, and here it is. And it's immediately assigned to Paul's position. So this is a really cool way to manage devices and people. We put Ginger in the middle here, and maybe these two never get along. They don't come in together, so we'll put Gilligan on the Velotron there. There was always a jealousy thing going on between those ladies. I'm sure of it. Okay, so drag and drop and manages the Ant Plus devices very efficiently, and you can get people set up really, really quickly. Up to 24 devices can be shown. Now, I've got 3 stations, and what does it mean? I've got 3 stations, and they're populated by people. What that means is when I let's pick a nice video, and just to warn you, you're going to see the video come up, and you might see it very stop and go. And it's because we're trying to put this high-value video through the pipes, through the internets, over GoToMeeting, and it's trying to send you full-resolution video. It's not going to do it. It's doing it at a much lower frame rate. So you're going to see jerky video. This is not what it looks like. So I have to bring this. I'm going to bring my window over to where you can see it. And what do I have? I have 3 rows of data. One for Gilligan. Few people knew that his name was Willie. I have Ginger Grant, and I have Wrong Way Feldman here. Simply because 3 stations, 3 people. Now, I'm just going to go back to the setup screen.
Hey, Paul, and you might be doing this now too, can you briefly show us how to configure a workout?
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, do you mean a custom workout or just any old workout?
A custom workout, quick version.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Let me just kill off this topic for a second, and then I will. If I have a studio and if I normally have three units set up, and I only fill 2, suppose only Ginger and Gilligan show up, I can just take wrong way Feldman off or leave that empty. And the point is this. That's all I have to do. I don't need to disconnect anything. I don't need to reconfigure anything. I can pick my video, let's ride, and I'll only show the two people that are here will show up. And the cool thing about this is a really neat way for you to, if you're riding alone or you don't even have to be alone, there is a really cool way to show. You can always show your power meter if you don't want to see the power from the kicker or the CompuTrainer here. You can assign your power meter to show up in this field. But if you ever wanted to see both, if you wanted to see the kicker as well as your power meter, you can set up yourself in two places. I can do that in detail in a few minutes. Tim, which should I do first, the custom workout or the cool power meter measuring configuration?
Let show the quick power. I mean, just so, I mean, I'm not sure you have to show the power there, Paul. I think that people get that you can connect your power device, which is a really big deal in some degree, particularly in multi-rider centers and stuff like that, because the reality is that the workout is driving, but you can actually see your power heart rate, device. I don't, like, I have a CompuTrainer devices, and I wear a heart rate monitor, but I don't like the ones that originally came with CompuTrainers, and I didn't want to have to upgrade mine. So it allows me to put my heart rate on the screen and whatever select data I want, either from my bike or from CompuTrainer, which is very cool.
Yeah. Okay, so I do want to show you this. Okay, I am going to tell ErgVideo that temporarily that let's suppose I'm riding my Velotron, okay, and I have a power meter on the Velotron. In this case, a Stages power meter, and it keeps timing out on me. Well, okay. So what I do is I put myself on the Velotron. I put a clone of myself on another station. I put nobody on station 3. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to have two rows. So physically I'm riding a Velotron, but a power meter is also on the bike on my Velotron. So this power sensor, this Stages, is on the crank on my Velotron. But I'm going to have it show up in a different field. So when I do a let's ride, because people ask me this, kind of ask me this all the time. Paul Smeulders is what I'm going to see most of my data coming from the Velotron. But under Paul Clone, I'm going to see the actual data from the power meter. So here I'll see the Velotron power, and I'll see the power meter power. And if you want to do post-analysis of how accurate is my power meter, or I shouldn't even use that word. How well does my Velotron and my Stages agree in power? Well, you could just take that data, and it is sample for sample lined up perfectly. And so a lot of people, they say, I think my power meter is this much more accurate. And it's like, well, how did you prove it? This is a great way to prove it. And if you think that your kicker is inaccurate, or if you think something is wrong, or if you want everything to just line up with your terribly inaccurate power meter, this is a way to sort of decide how far off are they. Okay, so that's one feature. Tim asked me to do a custom workout. And I'm often very surprised at people not knowing that this feature is available. We try to make sure you don't have to do too much work. So when you pick a workout from your library, a really interesting one here is FRC intervals. The first workout that shows up is just the video, the complete ride from start to finish. We have 2 sets of 6 intervals here and 2 sets of 4 intervals here, followed by kind of a 20-minute SST effort. You can ride this workout from start to finish. It's very hard, but we basically built that workout so that you could put in many variations, and we provide you with variations. This one basically is the same workout with those 4 reps made easier. This is doing the 6 rep 2 times 6 twice, so you got a 4 times 6. And if you are a customer, basically you get the video, you click a button. After you've loaded the video, either a button shows up here that says update your libraries, or you just go into this tab and you click that button that's always there. Update workouts, it goes to the server, it pulls down a whole bunch of workouts and merges them into your custom workouts, and you have all of our customized workouts that we provide you. Now, you may want to make your own workout, and the facility to do that is right down here. You've picked a video, new workout, or do I want to edit that current workout? Well, let me do a new one. So I get this box, I'll make things bigger. And like I said, this top view is the video from start to finish, from 0 to 1:17:11. And down here is where I'm going to have my custom ride built. I'm very curious that I don't have a graph. Anyway, let's say I like that warm-up. So I mark it with start and a finish. So whatever is white here is going to be used. All of this is blocked out. And if I do it like this, you can see I'm basically taking a frame. I'm going to take from the beginning to the end of the warm-up and say add. So now I have, this is my resultant workout. So far it's only 12:48 long. I can scale it. Let's say I thought it was too easy of a warm-up. So I scale it up by 10%. I don't want to do those 6 intervals. I want to do the 4s. May the 4s be with you. Add after selection. I might have thought that those are too hard, so I'll make them easier. And let's do another pair of 4s. And I'm going to make those ones harder. And let's just finish it off with, instead of the 20 minutes, I'll do that little descent because that's fun too. And as I'm moving this, you're actually not seeing it because it's partly because of the GoToMeeting is it's causing this to freeze. But as you slide these sliders, you actually see where you are in the video. It's not happening because of GoToMeeting, I'm sure, at the moment. So let's just take that, add after selection, and make it really, really easy. And you can see as I'm adjusting the intensity down here, my time in zones is being shown. Okay, I've actually succeeded in making a very zone 2, zone 1 workout. So let me bring that one up and get me a little more zone 4. Okay, that's probably too much. And if I bring my warm-up up a little bit harder, you'll see a little more zone 3. And your Training Peaks performance metrics are all here. So as you make adjust the workout, you can see, you can target what you want. So you can actually make equivalent workouts based on these metrics if you'd like to follow that. At any rate, that's my new workout. I should give it some sort of a name. This will be demo, what's today? It's 30th. And this is Usually we say something about what the ride is all about, right? It's, you know, so many sets of these and that and whatever. So basically any text you want to call it. I have a total time of 1:11 for that workout. If I need to make it longer, well, let's just add another one of those. And now I'm up to 1:38. So what happens is the video rolls, jumps ahead so it rolls from here to here, jumps ahead to the 4s, jumps back to the 4s and applies them harder, and jumps ahead to the 20-minute, and then it jumps back and does it again. And there's my new workout. And so now this is in your catalog forever, unless you delete it with this button. And if ever I call it up and I think, wow, that looks really hard, there's too much zone 6, there's a lot of zone 3, you don't necessarily have to go in and edit each piece. You can just use this slider to make the workout easier. And of course, that slider just applies to the whole workout. And so anything that you pick from here, let's suppose I picked this one, I can make that whole workout easier or much harder. And this is how you can customize workouts. Yeah, that's that's something that I'm often. Lots of customers say I had no idea what those buttons were for, and it's pretty cool that you can do it. Like to do it when you've got a. Well, here's kind of a good one. You can sort of see this. This is a hill climb of the Quad Fair where there's lots of action going on. There's not a whole lot of attacking in this one, but at the end where these guys kind of hit a really logical place to start ramping it up just to the top, you can sort of see there's a trend of a ramping interval. And so we actually offer, you know, one of the workouts that comes with this video. It's only an hour-long session, but you're going to be doing 2 18-minute power ramps where you kind of ramp up almost to the top. This one you finally do the sprint and you get to the top. You know, other ones, I'm just sort of going through. I don't have a whole lot of intervals here other than, oh, we got the climbing interval. Oh, this one's a lot of fun. This is climbing 2 very famous climbs in Colorado with Tim and Scott Moninger, and Kathy appears at the beginning. Some of the nicest video we've ever taken. But you can see here that that's the basic ride, and Tim has specified we can do 3 20-minute SSTs from it. There's a 6 by 10-minute FTP workout, all from the same video and just customizing the flow. Okay, that kind of ends my overview of my driving, and I guess it's best to answer questions if there are any.
Well, Paul, I mean, excellent presentation. I've been answering all the questions in the box as we go. The only point I'd like to add to what you're saying here is, and I got a couple of questions, so I think people are tracking it. As you were watching Paul click through different workouts, whether he builds them or he just clicks on like, Paul clicked back on complete ride, you notice that the time and zones is changing, and so is the metrics below. You see the TSS. So if you hit let's ride and then just ride this ride, you will end up with 96 TSS. This is what I mean by training exactly to a plan. Your IF of that ride will be 0.84. You're designing the exact workout in advance that whether you're selecting it from the pre-builts, following a training plan like the Scott Monger plan, or your coach or yourself are building unique workouts and prescribing them, you're training to an exact effort. Therefore, it creates an exact stress, which creates a more predictable adaptation. And the trick here, and it's why it's so important, the point that I put out about exercise versus training. ErgVideo is a training program. Whether you're self-coached, following a training plan, or working with a coach, it's a training program. It gives you all the tools. We see a video and some amazing scenery and videography and high-def videos, but underneath it is one of the most powerful off-season training devices that is out there. And I almost think, I even say to Paul sometimes, I think people get wrapped up in the pretty pictures almost too much and are missing the point that there is a a very powerful training system happening underneath here. So let's open up for questions for Paul and I. I see there's one coming in about a Cyber Monday discount. I'll let Paul answer that for ErgVideo, but I do know there's a $1.99 demo video out there that could be pulled down.
Yeah, no Cyber Monday. We don't run sales. We keep our discounts for quantities. Our $1.99 video is a very high value video. I'll show you the power file for it. Oh, no, sorry. That one. Ah, locked. I still have it locked on my system. Let me see here. Yes. Well, let's unlock it. Let me just.
Well, what other questions might we have? So basically, there is a $1.99.
Yeah, there is a $1.99. Yeah, I can't call it the freebie, right? But it is a $1.99 preview to show you some its full capabilities. We've held nothing back. It's a full 40 minutes. It does everything. It's not like you're going to come across a feature that's not implemented and you're somehow ripped off. Everything works. You can make workouts 6 hours long if you want.
Yeah.
That's our current thing that's going on now. I have something against doing sales because when you do a sale, then typically people will not buy at all year long until the sale happens. So we've been very consistent with our prices. The deal that you do get is if you buy a bunch at a time, you get progressive discounts.
Gotcha.
So that's our pricing model. Yeah, and that's our model there.
Let me tackle one or two of the other questions in here. I'll tackle one, Paul. Maybe you can help me with the other one. I'll start with the last one.
Sure.
I
can hardly. So yeah.
You can hardly hear me?
I can hardly read the questions. I only have a very narrow view.
Gotcha.
So
yeah, you can expand it, but here we go. So I was curious to what you recommend for cadence when you are working at 100% or more. Well, Paul, in that question, there's a lot of cadence work built into these workouts with places where you'll see recommended cadence or where you'll be using your naturally selected cadence. I am not someone who believes in forcing a cadence, but I do believe in using the base training, winter training time period to improve your efficiency, which often does tend to relate to improving your cadence. So I'll do certain efforts and workouts that have a lot of cadence basis, and I'll mix, fast pedal work, fast pedal when fatigued, other different things in to help build it. But I'm only setting cadence in specific cadence workouts. When you're going 100%, your natural selected is generally the best. There are some times where we're prescribing changing that up as part of a specific workout, but normally it's your best.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, usually, again, whatever cadence you adopt, the only proviso is most of your trainers go inaccurate if you are going too slowly. And I don't mean slowly in cadence, I mean slowly in wheel speed. Wheel speed over 12 miles an hour. Otherwise, trainers will either turn off or get wildly inaccurate. So you pick a gear that will give you, you'll be in the butter zone of speed above 12 miles per hour, and you self-select your cadence in most cases. I've just pulled up this particular workout because this is one where Scott and Tim filmed. We've got 6 30-second stints on this workout where they simulated the big gear, low cadence climbing interval. And on your trainer, all you have to do, and we have the text that comes up, it says pedal between 50 and 70 against the very high torque. And back to my discussion of how when you reduce your speed, you are going to have an increased torque. And so this is a specific case where when you go down to 50, you're really pushing against high torque because it's set at something like 105% of your FTP. So you really feel it when you go to low cadence. But normally, if you're just trying to finish, a power interval, you go at your self-selected one. So, and here as well, we've told you to go at high cadence for these ones. Just, it's Tim's, exercise your cadence range, exercise your ability to change cadence, and your neurological pathways
Correct.
to generate cadence. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's all in there. Let me jump a couple quick other questions here. Chris, you're asking, do we see a difference in the resistance between direct drive and rear tire trainer? Not in erg mode and not in erg, using these type of systems, because the system does such a good job, the software slaves the smart trainer and controls the experience. There is a slightly different feel to a kicker versus a CompuTrainer, in my opinion. And one day I might tell you one is better, and the other day I might tell you the other is better. They're just slightly different, but both really good. So you really won't feel much of a difference.
Yeah. I found, my reaction to, so I always ride the Velotron, which, if you don't know what it is, it's a RacerMate product, but it has about I bet you it's about 75 or 65 pound flywheel and pretty much frictionless load, frictionless turning. And when I rode the kicker, I basically said, because the kicker has such a nice big heavy flywheel, it gives you a feel, I find a better feel than the CompuTrainer itself, just because that flywheel gives you some inertia through your dead spots.
Correct.
And it can get you about 3/4 of the way to a Velotron at about 1/4 the price. So but I have run into people say, look, my CompuTrainer, the CompuTrainer is actually quieter. If once they're calibrated, you're in good shape with either product. So, yeah.
Gotcha. And Sam, to your question, yes, once you assign a device to a rider, it will always identify with that rider until you change it for all future workouts. And Paul did a quick demo on that.
Yes. It'll always come up and say, I should be for Paul, and I think, and in fact, the system will think Paul is there, and the only way to assign it to someone else is to unassign it from Paul and give it to someone else. Just like you take off your heart rate strap and give it to someone else, which you shouldn't do. But.
Perfect. Sean, you ask, is there a training plan available for winter base using ErgVideo exclusively? Yes, actually, there are 2 free training plans included if you buy the either Hunter Allen FTP pack or the Scott Moniger climbing pack. I worked with both Hunter on his plan and Scott on his plan. So you have 2, different, similar to some degree. There's a base focus, and obviously they're made for base training, but the plans are available when you can, and you see them now on the screen. You have a Scott Moniger plan, a Hunter Allen, a combined. Paul and I actually combined the plans here recently, plus there's traditional training ones. So you can just choose and pull down any one of those training plans. There's the video it uses and what it's kind of doing. So you can see the schedule, and you can actually just download that, import it into your, I guess the term would be your library, and then each day you launch ErgVideo, it has the workout, tells you what to do.
Yeah, and in fact, I've got 3 loaded here. I guess I should have not put 3 in to confuse you, but the most recent one I put in here is my ErgVideo training plan. And what happens is, so here, this button is where you're just picking a video, and you're picking from the canned rides or preset timed rides of an individual. But if you've configured training plans, you can just call up your yearly plan, and in this case, It says on 11/30/2015, your scheduled ride is on the Paso Gavia South. It's for 140. It's got my little description because I built it using one of the coaching tools or this device or this system. And this is the power profile you're doing today. This is your time in zones. Here's your target. I'm going to do 103 TSS over an hour and 40. It's not too hard of a ride, and off I go. So really, you've configured all your hardware. Suppose, let's just say I'm riding by I'm going to just put myself riding by myself. Blah blah blah. I'm going to close ErgVideo, and I'm going to say, okay, got my shorts on, got my heart rate monitor on. I'm going to fire up ErgVideo. ErgVideo is going to find all my devices. Hopefully everything is the same as yesterday or my last ride, and it doesn't bother me. It doesn't come up to config. I say training plan. That's what I'm doing. Let's ride. So in 3 clicks, I'm on my bike and pedaling, and I love this. I spend more time trying to pick my music than I do picking the video.
And it's so important as a coach or a studio owner here that you think about what you can do. As a studio owner, you could have these planned, you could have a plan loaded for all sessions that, in the day, and then basically you're 3 clicks and in, everybody shows up, it finds them, you load the bikes, and bam, you're done. Very simple process. For a coach, you can build a training plan for an athlete, give it to them, and then they're basically just firing up, choosing their training plan and doing it today. So Paul, one question I see here, maybe you could show us the quick link. Do you have information about the studios? There's a question about a studio link. Do you have a link on the website? Where can they find information about setting up for studios?
For setting up for studios, I'm showing the website here. Under info, there is a subcategory, so you could just hit the info and get all the categories. I might not have been to this page for a while, so it's loading here. This info tab is pretty handy for studios in general because it's general information. Display options is something studios are interested in because we have a subcategory there, what you're going to do. But also a tab here for fitness studio info. It's fairly brief, but this is the page. I'm not really sure what specific question they want to find out about.
I think that was, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I got it. So Mike is asking about setup fans and stuff, like the actual studio.
Oh, yeah. Oh, your pain cave.
Yeah, that's interesting. We should have a tab for that, shouldn't you?
And I should have photos in my. Let me just see if I have some pictures in my.
Well, let's keep pressing on with questions while you look. I think we've actually, though, have got most of them. So we know there's a training plan. We got a very excellent comment from Ron Nelson, who had to leave. He has over 40 videos, and he's buying 3 more tomorrow. So
thanks, Ron.
That's great. He even said that Paul didn't have to pay him anything to say that.
He's the guy who asked for the Cyber Monday discount.
Yeah. So Sam says he runs 2 studios, a 6, an 8, and a 6. Fans are absolutely, you guys, if you're training indoors without a fan, you're dramatically decreasing performance, besides the fact potentially hurting yourself. The increased body temperature will reduce your power per heart rate relationship significantly. Cooling is king in your studio.
Yeah, this is an old picture of in my what is sitting right behind me at the moment. Not the girl, but the setup and the fans that I'm trying to show you there. They're key. People like coming to my place because I have big fans. The bigger the better. These are called Turbo Air. They're made by a Canadian company, I think. You know, you can get them at Canadian Tire of all places. Yeah, invest in your fans. Don't scrimp.
Yeah. All right, Paul, it looks like that's all the questions, and we've kind of gone some overtime. So you guys, this will be recorded, and it will come back out through the Peaks Coaching Group offices, a link that if you want to rewatch it, and look at the questions, stuff like that, gladly do it. Any questions you have, you know, obviously you've seen Paul's website at ergvideo.com. Tool around in there, learn, feel free to submit questions. And anything we can do to help, just let us know. But appreciate everybody being attentive and joining us tonight. And we hope that you have a good evening.
Thanks, guys.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah, good night.